All right, so I never thought we'd do a gin interview, but here we are, the first episode of Behind the Distillery instead of Vineyard. Got a nice ring to it, I must say. So our very first gin interview, today's guest is half the brains behind Bertha's Gin. So say hello to Antony Jackson. Hi, Anthony. How's it going over there?
Hi, Germaine. Lovely to see you, and as I love your backdrop, and we're delighted to be part of your podcasting. It's very exciting for us, and thank you so much indeed for carrying Bertha with you at.
Absolutely. I mean, I like your background too. It's a very cute distillery. It's a very nice distillery you got going over there.
Oh, well, it's I'm sure it's not quite as warm as where you are at the moment, but it's that's behind me is our main still. It's a 500-litre Carl still, and where we are, we'll do a bit of a tour later on if we've got time. It's literally an old cattle shed that we've converted into a gin distillery, so it's very agricultural.
Yeah, we'll definitely come back to that. It's very interesting. So usually we like to kick things off by having, you describe what the view is like over there. Because, we're stuck in a concrete jungle, make us jealous.
Yeah. Well, we're very lucky. I mean, it's a lovely, lovely place to work. Ballyvolane itself is an old historic Irish house on an estate of well, it's now 80 acres. It was a lot bigger than that. So lots of deciduous woodland and trees in very much rural Ireland. It's in County Cork, which is right down at the bottom of Ireland. And we're about 25-30 minutes from Cork City, but we're in a very rural environment. Lots of farms, lots of dairy farms, which feeds into our product later on. And it's just a lovely country idyll, and lovely gardens, lovely woodland walks, and the house itself is a small country house hotel that Justin, my business partner, and his wife run. So at the moment, it's full of families enjoying summer holidays and glamping and playing tennis, and it's all very, very nice.
Wow. Way to kick us in the butt there again.
So it's a lovely place to work. I mean, I've worked like you, commuting in and out of cities in London and Belfast and Dublin, and I must say, it's nice to be able to be here, and you're just surrounded by countryside sounds and occasionally countryside smells, but it's a very nice place to live.
Yeah. Sounds amazing. It's great. Well, you were talking about Ballyvolane House. So I noticed a little video that you guys made. And I noticed Bertha's was right behind Ballyvolane House. So what's the connection? Why there?
It's there. Justin, who I alluded to, is my business partner, and his grandparents bought the farm back in the 50s. And they farmed it both in that generation and in Justin's generation as a dairy farm and as a private house. And then farming incomes were never certain. So his father sold a lot of the land in the 1980s, and he and his wife started taking and paying guests on a bed and breakfast basis in the house. And that's continued in a slightly bigger scale with Justin and Jenny, his wife, who met in Hong Kong, and their background is hospitality and hotel. They worked around the world in hotels, and they decided to increase the offering to weddings and glamping and raising quality really a little bit. So, but it's very seasonal here in Ireland. The whole tourist season is very short. It's a summer season, and so Justin was looking at ideas for smoothing over the peaks and troughs of the income stream throughout the year. And he and I are very, very old friends from school. And my background is in wine. I've been in the wine industry for 25 years. And we were both looking at the gin scene. And it came about over a conversation. And so we decided we'll set up a distillery here on site. So going back to your question, Germaine, the house is there, and the distillery where I'm sitting now is in an old cattle shed in the yard behind the house. So it's connected to the estate, but they're two separate businesses.
Wow. Well, yeah. So going back to what you just mentioned, so how do you transit from wine to gin? Like what, how did it all come about actually?
Well, as I say, it was a chat about, how they fended off starvation throughout that year. And we were just very interested to see how the gin scene was moving. In our case, in Ireland, mainly in our reference point to be London, and it was moving quickly there. And we decided to give it a go. And all we wanted was to produce a gin that was high quality, that could sit alongside Ballyvolane as a brand. Ballyvolane is quite a upmarket brand, so we wanted something that could sit alongside that comfortably. But beyond that, we didn't really know what we were doing. And so we went off to London, and I set up a couple of meetings with everybody from distillers to distributors to people in the industry, in the bar trade and the cocktail trade, and some marketing people, just to get a feel for what was there and what the market was like. And we had a really fascinating chat with a guy called Charles Maxwell, who's the head distiller of a small contract distillery called Thames Distillery in London. And we gave him the bare bones of our plan. And he said, guys, what you should really look for is whey alcohol as your base spirit, as opposed to a grain alcohol, which is the more traditional base. Mm-hmm. And he said that because the whole whey alcohol product was developed by an Irish company back in the 1970s, but hadn't got into the food chain really, as many used as a stabilizing agent. But and so we skipped out of that meeting because that meant that we had a bit of a USP in terms of an Irish product, and we could base it on that. And then so we came back, and then we started formulating an idea of how we developed from that.
Wow. So it's very interesting how it all came about, how whey, and then is that where you derive, or where Bertha came about?
Yeah, whey. Yeah, no, whey. The whey came before Bertha. I mean, whey, just to give you and your guests a bit of a background, whey is a natural, completely natural byproduct of cheese making, and so the milk. The dairy milk, in our case, it's from cows, is naturally separated to curds, which are the more solids, to whey, which is a brown, brackish water, and that naturally occurs when you bring the milk up to room temperature, slightly above. And so traditionally, down through the years, the whey was fed to pigs or thrown away down the drain or spread on the land as fertilizer, and wasn't really used. And so the cheese company here in Cork developed a couple of strains of yeast to work with the residual sugars in the lactose in the whey and to make a whey beer. And it's a really inefficient process, but because whey was a waste product anyway, that wasn't really an issue. So you make a whey beer, and then through fermentation, and then after that you distill it, and you get a really, really good quality ethanol that is a food grade ethanol. So we brought that in and started working with it. So in terms of the whole recipe development for Bertha, we had our whey alcohol, and then initially Justin and I wanted a very floral style of gin, and we tried using, and I've got a little thing here, I wonder if you can see, this is what we started on. It's a little 1 litre alembic still. I mean, it's tiny, wow. And it's sort of heated by a little electric plate. That means very, very Heath Robinson. So we were trying on that, and we found very early on, probably because we were very amateur distillers, that any of the delicate notes that we wanted to bring in from a floral side of things were just completely suppressed and lost. So we turned everything on its head, and both Justin and I love our curries and warm curry spices. So we went for a lot of cinnamon and clove and cumin and cardamom, and that really worked. And it's a funny thing, the whey alcohol, it shouldn't be the case, but it has got a texture that's much more generous than a sort of a grain spirit. You get a lovely coating of the palate, and it's creamy, but it shouldn't be creamy, but it is. It's a nice, rich taste, and it holds the spices that we want to use really, really well. So no, we had a fun time doing that, and it took us. It was batch number 19 on our funny little still that we had our eureka moment and said, right, we've got a recipe that we can both like and work with, and then we went to the next stage.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, when you talk about mouthfeel, that's exactly how I felt. So I was looking at the label initially, and I was like, cumin, there's a lot of spice. It's very spice heavy. I was like, but then I tried it, and I was like, like, Exactly what you described. You get that body, so it's the spices isn't too overpowering. It comes
Mm,
like at the start, and then you get a bit of citrus, but then the spice
mm,
kind of goes and comes back again. So
mm,
it's a really nice touch, actually. So
mm.
good job, you guys. That was
Thank you.
really
No, thank you. Well, we're delighted. I mean, we like it, and but it's, when we hear any sort of comment, but especially favourable comment, it's so we take it as a great compliment. So thank you.
Mm.
So we had our gin at that point, and then we had to decide what to call it, and we had to be something to do with a cow or something, because, as I explained, we're in this converted cattle shed here on the farm. It used to be a dairy farm back in the day, so there was a connection there. And Ballyvolane is translated from the Gaelic or Irish language as place of the leaping heifer, and a heifer is a young female cow, pre-calf.
Mm.
So all things pointed
Yeah.
to
Everything is just
so we didn't know what we didn't to be called sort of cow gin or Ballyvolane gin and other, but we then remembered a friend of ours who's a historian, literally by chance stumbled upon a wake, and a wake is a celebration after a death, usually of a person, but in this case it was for a cow called Bertha, in County Kerry, which is our neighbouring county to us here in Cork, in the southwest of Ireland. And Bertha had lived to 48 years of age, which is extraordinary for any cow. I mean, most cows in the dairy system now are lucky to make 7 or 8 years of age. And over her lifetime, she'd given birth to 39 calves, which again is extraordinary. And she was an old Irish breed called a Germaine, which is a hardy dual-purpose breed, milk and beef. And after she'd retired from calf rearing, because she became a local celebrity and led the parade at the local St. Patrick's Day parade
oh,
on a national
wow.
holiday. And she got involved in sort of raising money for charities. She was very involved in 2 local cancer charities. And so when she died, the locals were very upset, and she was literally on the bar counter in a bar, and people were just sort of praying for her and wishing her well in the afterlife. So our friend wrote about this, and it got published in a couple of newspapers, and we remembered the story, Justin and I. We said, well, let's bring Bertha back. Bring her back in spirit, literally. And so old Bertha came back. And the revenge name is it's not meant to be vindictive at all. It's just we felt as two men who know nothing, of course, but any female who's given birth more than once must have revenge in her mind at some point. So that's why we brought her back. So she's
That's
coming
so
back in her
interesting.
own.
Oh, yeah.
So she's coming back in her own terms, and that's that. But it was interesting, Germaine, when we were brainstorming, that label at the beginning with our friends and family and some people in the industry. Pretty much everybody said, guys, you can't put milk and gin and a cow in the same context in terms of a brand packaging. It's a mixed message. It's very confusing. And we said, no, this is our brand and this is what we're doing. And we stuck to our guns. And thank goodness, because as you and your listeners know, it's such a crowded market out there in the gin category, and anything that makes you stand out on the shelf. And in our case, it starts a conversation, whether or not in a shop or in a bar. What's the story behind the gin with the cow on it and everything else. It makes the whole transition between going in to look for something to buy and actually buying it much easier.
Yeah, I think it definitely makes a good talking point. If you bust it out at parties, if people are going to be like, milk gin, what is that? Yeah. So, and that's a amazing legacy that you're trying to continue on for Bertha, actually. She's done more for the world than I think I do.
But no, it's fun. It's fun. It's been great fun. And Bertha herself she's stuffed, and we used her for our launch party in Dublin. So that was quite interesting, wheeling a cow up the middle of Dublin when we launched in 2015.
That had to be interesting. But how long did it take actually for the ideation to, you guys sold your first batch in 2015?
Yep. Yeah, 2015.
So, yeah.
Towards the middle of 2015.
So how long did it take, from the idea to R&D to
Well, yeah, not too long. We started talking about it in the summer of 2014, and we did a lot of research in the autumn of 2014, and we started working on a development in early 2015. And we were very lucky, Germaine. We've got a really good friend in the gin distilling industry, and he's about a year ahead of us in terms of development. And so while we got our licenses and everything here for the site here, we were able to use his facilities and his still to produce our stock. And we didn't move our production on site here until 2016. So basically we were, we were working with him for a year before we came on site.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not too long. Less than a year.
No, we were very lucky. I mean, gin. It's a funny thing. It's quite a simple thing to make, which I probably shouldn't be saying. I mean, the process doesn't take very long. We've got a batch on the go at the moment, which I'm gonna turn off, and it's basically what we do. In fact, shall I do a bit of a tour now and show you, run you through the process? Would that work? Okay.
Sounds good.
So we'll see if, and actually it'll work very well because I'm just turning everything off. But so bear with me for a moment to see if I can. So we'll start. Actually, I'll turn everything off first, and that'll make it much easier. So I'm going up to the control panel, which is our very high tech. And just turning that off, and that's all off, so nothing will explode. And I'm just going to swap something off quickly. Don't want any leakages. A bit like driving a train. There's lot of levers to pull. That's that.
What are Bertha's production numbers?
I'm all yours. So we're going to start with I'm going to talk you through the distillation process briefly, but I'll start with looking at some of the botanicals. So what we do is we have about 18 botanicals, which is quite a lot for a gin. I mean, most of the commercial gins, the Gordons of this world, you might have 4 or 5 key botanicals, and the main one is juniper. So I'm going to put you into our oh god, I'm not sure if you can see this or not. No,
a little bit.
I'm going to hold it up. These cameras. Oh, there we go. So
I see the berries.
There we go. They're little juniper berries, and they are the mainstay of all gin. And for a gin to be called gin, it must have a discernible amount of juniper. And alongside that, we've got
yes.
That's a little thing there. So we've got cardamom there, and coriander, and Alexanders, and we put those in to our still the night before. Those are our hard shell botanicals, and they macerate overnight with the water and our whey alcohol. And then our soft shell botanicals, which actually there's not much. Well, there's a lot to see, but you won't be able to see it on here. The things like the cumin and the clove and the orris and all the other ones, and our fresh citrus, we pop into our still. Now, I've just this is probably quite hot because it's just finished. You can, I don't know if you can see the steam or not.
Yeah.
So that
wow.
Well, it's a black hole at the moment. But anyway, we fill it all in there, and the night before and the morning of, and I started that this morning at about 7:30, and then it's coming to the end of its first run. Now we're doing a 200-liter run in that still at the moment, and it's a really nice, easy process. So I'm just going down here to that stainless steel bit is the water jacket, and that is heated by 6 heating elements, which heats the water, and then in turn all the botanicals are in this copper still, and the copper goes down halfway down the water jacket, And the water heats the copper, which in turn heats the liquid inside, and that comes to boiling point at about 80 degrees centigrade, and at which point it begins to generate vapors at the top of the copper thing, going up to the helmet up there, and then the vapors cross over right over to the condenser, which is over here, and this long stainless steel tube is a condenser, and we've got water running through that.
Right.
And that is, and then as the water runs through it, it cools, and then that's our little spirit stays there, and then we run it through my geography of my pipe into the little containers. So it doesn't take very long, and for a 200 litre run, we're getting approximately about 75 litres of hearts, which is good, and then we cut that, and that comes off at about 80% proof, and then we bring that down gradually, because we've learned over time our declared ABV is 42%, and rather than dilute it all down to 42%, we just, because the water actually bruises the alcohol as you add it, so we do it over maybe 5 days, bring it down gradually to 42% in stainless steel tanks, and then we can start bottling, and I'll show you that now. So this is our there we go. So this is our bottling line here. So the bottle and labeling, all the little labels go on there, and comes down here, and these are some bottles ready to go. So they're all empty, labels, happy cow. And then our we've got this sort of semi-automatic bottling machine here. It's pretty manual, and we've probably made it more difficult for ourselves, because we've got quite a lot. We've got 7 labeling elements in each of our bottles, so there's a lot of hand labeling to do as well, between our little wax seal that we put on, which is put on by hand.
It's like a hoof.
Yeah. So there's a lot to do. So in terms of, we distill one day, and it takes 4 or 5 days to bring it down to declared ABV, and then we label and bottle and pack everything here. And that's a big thing for us too, as a company. You know, we have complete ownership of all the production process and the packaging, and so, you know, when a bottle leaves here, we know it looks right, and it's up to speed and up to scratch.
Right. What are the production numbers like? So, you know, for wine, it really depends on, you know, how good the grape was that year, the harvest. Does it apply the same thing in terms of gin?
Well, not really. I mean, your limiting factors for us. There's no real limiting factor in raw based spirit. You can get that reasonably easily. I suppose things like if suddenly there was a very harsh or too hot summer for juniper, that would be a tricky. That was the case 2 years ago. It was really, really hot, and the berries were quite small, and there was a real problem getting juniper in. But generally speaking, we don't have the same problems as winemakers in terms of the vagaries of vintage from one to the next. So our only limiting factor is our capacity to produce, and also you lovely consumers, whether or not you want to drink it or not. So that's it. We don't. So we're very small. It's just Justin and I. We've got one lady helping us in the distillery, and we've got one lady in the office, and we're producing. I mean, I go back to 2019 now, pre-COVID. We were producing just over 30,000 liters. Almost 40,000, 70 cl bottles. And then our plan was pre-COVID to bring that up quite acutely to 45,000 last year, but obviously that didn't happen. So, but we have the capacity to ramp up quite a lot, and so it'd be nice to get up to somewhere around sort of 60,000-70,000 liters a year, but we're got a bit of a way to go to that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. I mean, with all the awards that you guys are winning recently. So you guys,
Yeah.
back in 2017, it was the Gin Innovation winner. And then 2018, you guys managed to clinch a silver in IWSC. 2020 was the bronze in World Gin, and this year was the silver. Congrats. I mean, so
Yeah.
what's the difference, do you think, between, you guys getting the bronze in 2020 compared to 2021? Is it kind of like wine vintages, or
That's a very good question. I think we enter lots of awards, and as you know, some of them are very commercial, and you pay to turn up, and it's not, it's, you don't know how good they are in terms of quality. But IWSC in particular, and the San Francisco Spirits Award, they're very good because you've got independent judges judging it, and it's completely independent. So we really rate what they say, and we enter year on year. So to answer your question with the IWSC, because the judging panel changes, it might be a simple matter of 1 year one judge likes it, and 1 year one judge likes it, but maybe not as much as the previous person. So and they send out quite a detailed report afterwards. Well, I mean, 3 or 4 paragraphs, which is really good. And so, quite detailed tasting notes, and so you're getting feedback also. Basically, where you might slip between the cracks and drop a places is, the judges aren't getting the taste or the smell definition that you're saying they should get, or maybe they are. So it really comes down. It's a very subjective thing, and then we've started entering also for the packaging awards too. But that's a whole different ballgame. But it's important to us that people like what's actually in the bottle. I think that's ultimately what's the most important thing.
Right.
But it's a good thing to do, because it's especially in some markets. Some markets don't worry too much about awards, and some do. I think some of the Eastern markets do, and the Americans really like seeing awards and knowing that you've put your hat in the ring, and you're being judged by your peers in the industry.
Agreed. Well, going back to actually when we were talking about, not meeting expectations because of COVID. So the lion's share obviously is in bars and restaurants. So actually, with that taken out of the picture, how did Bertha stood in the last couple of years, and how, may that change moving forward?
Yeah, good question. I think it's a funny one. It depends geographically. We found in terms of our entry into the market changes to wherever the market is. In Europe, it's very much the on-trade, so bars and restaurants is where we've naturally found a home, and it's filtered into the independent off-trade. So that's worked really well, especially in Ireland. People have been very receptive to Bertha, but it's become an increasingly crowded market. So when we launched in Ireland, there were only 3 other standalone gin distilleries. There were quite a few whiskey distilleries that were making gin as a cash flow exercise before their gin arrived, and now there are just under 60 gin distilleries in Ireland, which is a lot. Wow. So the local on-trade are very good about supporting Irish product, but you can't support 60. So you're basically the subject of rotations at a bar, which I get, and I think it's quite a healthy thing to do. So you might have your 3 or 4 staples that are priced accordingly, and then the back bar you might rotate. And I understand that, and that's quite a fun thing for both the bar staff and the consumer. So, but it means that we're not sort of getting the volumes that we were before from the on-trade, and that replicates itself, I think, in the UK and in mainland Europe. Again, there's so many gins out there that you're lucky to get any sort of placing at all, and it's quite difficult to get a permanent listing on these, be it on a cocktail list or whatever, because there are so many to choose from. So we're still concentrating on that. We've shied away a little bit from the big retailers, the supermarkets, because I just don't feel their business practices are very good, and I prefer to work with independents myself. So we work with some independent chains, but we don't really do supermarkets at the moment because they just push you so hard on price, and then they discount, and then that is bad for the independents, in the market too. So we see the on-trade being good, but we'd like to get more independent and maybe more of the big online retailers, which have seen a big lift over COVID. And seeing, we are listed on Amazon, and then there are various online retailers in various countries, and a lot of the off-trade have really improved their online platform. So that works very well. America is a strange one. It's very much off-trade for us. We don't have a huge presence in the on-trade there, in the restaurants and bars. That really historically requires a brand ambassador in every state pushing it into bars all the time. So it's quite a lot of hard work and cost. And whereas we've found really good traction working with both the independents and America's such a complicated drinks market. Some states are all chain stores, and we're in 17 states there now, and it's going really well from a off-trade perspective. So in terms of trend, we'll write this year off, and hopefully the on-trade will come back in some shape or form. I think one negative thing, and I was talking about this to our distributor in Northern Ireland last week, because I don't know what it's like in Singapore, but in Ireland at the moment, and I can see this not changing this side of Christmas. You go into a bar or a restaurant and you're seated. You can't go to the bar and have a drink, which was a really traditional thing as part of an English and Irish bar experience. You go to the bar and you start talking to a stranger, start talking to the barman. But from a brand owner's point of view, that's a shame, because you don't go to the bar, so you don't see the choice behind the bar, and you don't talk to the bar man or woman and saying, what do you recommend, and have a bit more of a time to have that chat. You're at a table, you get a list, and everything's quite rushed and hurried. So independent brands like ours aren't being noticed as much as they were before, and so that is an issue. And but I think hopefully that'll change and revert to what it was like next year, I think.
Yeah, but I think you guys got it good in terms of, USP being Wei Jin, and Bertha's Revenge sounds like a pretty interesting name to try. If they're venturing to try something different.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's no, we're very happy. We've got a very strong brand in terms of the marketing and the image and everything else. So it does stand out, and it's just the other negative thing with COVID, Germaine, is not being able to travel to markets such as you guys or America, and just telling that story to people in the trade, who in turn can communicate the message to their customers. Yeah.
Well, I think that's the pain right now, which is, hopefully that's why, we doing Zoom and online. Now the trend is online, and trying to, get the education and knowledge across. So
it's great. This being able to do this. If COVID had happened 30 years ago, we'd be stuffed. I think. We wouldn't know where to do it. But no, it's been great, and at least we've been able to keep contacts like this going, and connect people with the brand, despite being thousands of miles apart. And it's really important, and it's very humbling for me and us in this tiny little shed in Ireland to be able to speak to you in Singapore and know that our product is available out there. I think I have to pinch myself constantly. That's the case.
It's amazing. You guys have a great product, and to be honest, what you guys do with Wei is new. It's amazing, and I think that's kind of the culture that in Singapore we're trying to always try new things. So you guys just fit right in, I think.
Oh, good. Well, I know it's your taxes and everything over there are quite expensive. So it is it's a premium choice. It's not for giving to the teenage kids on a Wednesday evening. It's a bit of a treat, but so we appreciate the sacrifices you make in buying it. But I know you're paying about tax. We've got a very high tax regime here in terms of alcohol, so it's tough.
Yeah. Well, just wrapping up this interview. So is there anything new you think that we can look out for for Bertha down the road?
Yeah, well, I think we work as you know with a distributor, a great guy called Derek Quick at the First Pour, and we've only started that relationship earlier this year. So you guys have got Bertha's Revenge in our 70 cl format. We also in January we launched a Navy strength gin, which is instead of 42%, that's 57.1%. So that's, and the reason being, it holds, the higher the ABV, the alcohol level, the more flavor it holds, and so we're really happy. And so that's lovely in a cocktail or everything else, but the cost might be quite prohibitive. That's in a 50 cl. And also we've been doing this for some. This is our slow gin. Which it's just like an infused Bertha with slow berries, which grow naturally here in Ireland, and that's a 50 cl format. And we're producing more and more of that every year, and there will be an allocation for Singapore for this year. So I don't know if Derek wants to go for that or not. And then we also, that's pretty much where we are at the moment. We are developing another gin, but it's very much developing stages yet.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait for the slow to come in. Unfortunately, it won't be in time for Christmas, will it? Next year?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't know, because it takes. Our first shipment over to you was it's long enough, but it was held up with that terrible blockage in the Suez Canal. And that had a terrible effect. But
that was a colossal.
Yeah, so I'm encouraging Derek to order again. He didn't order a huge amount because he was just trying the market. So hopefully he'll order again soon. So we might be able to squeeze some slow gin onto that.
Amazing. I can't wait. Well, all right. I mean, that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much, Anthony, for your time. And you'll be excited to hear that we actually offer a coupon code for our podcast listeners. So let's get gins going.
Thank you very much. Well, Germaine, thank you very much for the opportunity, and to all your listeners and followers, thank you very much for tuning in. I know it's sort of drinks time with you now. It's only 10:30 here, so.
Oh yeah, it's 5:30.
Yeah.
Happy hour starting.
It's time for it. But lovely to spend a bit of time with you. And as I said at the beginning, Germaine, if any of your followers have any questions that didn't come up in the interview, I'll be really happy to answer anything through you.
We will pass them through, definitely. All right. Okay. Have a good day, Anthony. All right.
Take care.